Mine is pretty lame compared to what I'm sure others have experienced, but I will still share it. About 10 years ago, when I was in my mid-teens, I was going through a typical grouchy, teenage hormonal stage. I had been raising chickens for eggs at the time and lived on my parents' 5 acres of wooded, secluded property. Putting the chickens away at night after dark always creeped me out. Constantly felt like something was watching me. My dog always came with me until he got too old and I didn't want him to have to walk out in the dark, and would lock him in so he wouldn't hurt himself. A lot of mildly creepy things happened at night there, but nothing stood out to me like this night. I had just locked the chicken door for the night and I had the most overwhelming urge to run and book it to the house. I didn't normally get that creeped out. I turned and started running and didn't look back. I could hear rustling in the bushes and jingling in the woods. Once I got inside, I made sure the door was locked right and also double-checked to make sure my dog was in fact locked in. He was and seemed extra agitated. A short while later, I heard what sounded like a herd of horses galloping right past the house. I know it sounds crazy and it was mid-autumn, so it wasn't even that late. Maybe 8 or 8:30 I turned the light on outside, no sign of horses. I wasn't sleepy or tired and hadn't had any alcohol or anything that could possibly alter my thinking. No one even has horses close enough for me to hear them that close or that clearly. I checked the next morning and no signs of horses running through the yard, no hoof prints or torn up grass or anything. My dog remained on edge the rest of the night and didn't want to go out to go potty. After that, I started experiencing horrible night terrors and sleep paralysis, where I would think things were attacking me and wouldn't be able to move.
I grew up on a farm with a long dirt lane the only way in. I have always enjoyed walking up the lane because it was so quiet and peaceful. There were a few newer houses back the lane, but most of the time I was completely alone. When my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, my mom had a double-wide trailer put in for her at the top of the lane so she could help with her care. Grandma planted her last live Christmas tree beside the trailer and babied it something funny. After she died, my brother bought the few acres her trailer was on and built a house there, being careful not to hurt Grandma's tree. I was out walking one morning and passed a strange lady walking a dog and said, "Good morning." The lady stopped and looked at me for a second and said, "Your grandma is here." I was confused, but I assumed she must have known her and didn't realize she had passed. I told her that I was sorry, but Grandma had passed some time ago. She stared at the pine tree and said, "No, I mean that she is here." Confused, I was looking around trying to figure out what she meant and blurted out, "Here? In the lane?" She said, "Yes, here in the lane by that tree. She stays here to make sure your mom's okay." I started sniffling, trying hard not to cry when she came over and patted me on the arm and said, "Don't worry, hun. She's fine. She's happy. She just wants to make sure your mom is okay because she's all alone now." Once I composed myself, and I only live a couple miles away and came over all the time, she said, "But her parents and her brother are all gone, and she's still really sad about it. Grandma just wants to make sure she knows that she's not alone. Will you tell her?" I said I would, and she patted me on the arm again and walked away. I don't know how she knew my uncle had died the year before because he lived a couple hours away. When I got back, Mom could see I had been crying. So I asked her about the lady, and she said she wasn't one of the neighbors. I told her what the lady said, and we both cried about it because that was exactly the kind of thing my grandmother would do. She thought the sun rose and set on my mom. None of us ever saw the lady again.
It's going to sound absolutely ridiculous, but when I was maybe 5 or 6, my old house was 100% haunted. Pretty much everyone in my immediate family had experiences that were unexplainable by conventional measures. For example, I stood on my landing, with my mum watching me, when all of a sudden I get sent falling down the stairs. But the way my body moved before I fell was like I was violently shoved. Maybe a year after that, I was lying awake in my bedroom, with lights shining through these weird window things that faced the hallway on my bedroom wall that I distinctly remember the lights turning off, and in the dark room, only illuminated by a nightlight and some slithers of moonlight, this tall, slightly hovering rotting corpse appeared maybe 1 to 2 feet in front of me, staring at me as I lay there. 15 years on, that image still gives me the occasional nightmare. One of the other incidents I can recall was a friend of my dad staying in our spare room, when in the middle of the night, his bed started violently shaking while he lay in it. To top this all off, it turns out my dad had dug up some of our back garden to lay down tiles. When he found one of those blue chemical barrels, and instead of doing the sensible thing of opening it, he reburied it, leaving it in our garden, presumably still there with its new owners.
When I was 3 years old, we lived in Texas in an apartment complex. My mom said that she would find me out of my crib sitting in a laundry basket almost every night. She said that I was playing and laughing and having a good time. She asked me who I was talking to, and I told her that it was Mary. She asked me about Mary, and I told her that she was an old lady and that she was my friend. Mary would come with us everywhere. She would sit at the dinner table with us, and my mom would open the door for Mary. When we went to the store or opened the door for her to get into the car, this went on for quite some time. And one day, my mom asked me if Mary was coming with us to the store. And I said, "No, Ma, Mary died." My mom did some research about the apartment and found out that there was an older lady who lived there, who died in the closet of my bedroom. In my bedroom. My mom said that she always thought it was odd that the hangers in the closet would move, and she thought it was me touching the clothes, but I wasn't anywhere near the closet. It's kind of spooky. I do not remember this, but it is a story that we asked to hear about around the bonfire.
Around 2000, when I was about 12 or 13, we moved into a house in the country. It was your typical brick ranch that was built sometime in the 60s or 70s. After a year or so, I started seeing a young girl. It was mostly out of the corner of my eye type of stuff, until it wasn't. Honestly, I thought something was wrong with me, and I confided in my mom about what was going on. Literally the next day after I told her, I was out school shopping with my dad, and my mum called and said, "I saw that little girl you were talking about." She had came home, and as she was turning the ADT alarm off, she seen a little girl dart from her room into mine. It was so validating. I've had many more experiences after that. Even after I grew up and moved out, it's like it followed me. My parents still live in that house. It will always give me vibes. That house literally opened my mind to the paranormal.
When I was maybe 7 or 8, my family moved out to the country. I was excited, of course. The property was at least 100-something years old, and it had a giant red barn. A beautiful house, and was right next to the highway. The backfields were at least 2 football fields long of cleared-out land, and the rest was all marsh and woods. Now it had only been probably a month since we moved in. I took my bike, out to ride around in a circle at the edge of the fields. The highway, like I said, is just between a few trees and bushes with a ditch. This will come useful to know for the story. Now, as I was riding on my back, I heard crumpling of leaves and other things like bushes being moved. I stopped my bike and looked out at the bushes. I called out, "Hello, is anyone there?" No one answered, but when I asked again, a man who looked to be in his mid-30s come out. He was in an old grey t-shirt, baseball cap, and I didn't know if he was just in his boxers or they were his shorts by how dirty they looked. He had this yellow teeth smile, and his hair didn't look the best. I started calling for my dad as loud as I could, but I was already too far away for him to hear. The man came a little bit more out of the bushes. He had a bag. He started talking to me. "It's all right. I ain't gonna hurt you. You can call to your dad. You want a mushroom?" He reached out with this mushroom in hand. He was already freaking me out enough, so I just ditched the bike and ran screaming to my dad at the barn. I told him what happened, and he came over to see this man. He said he was mushroom picking, and he always did it here. The last owner was an old man who couldn't take care of the property, so he wouldn't even knew this man was on the property. I still wonder why a stranger would offer a little girl a mushroom if they were already backing away and calling for their father. I never saw that man again, though.